waiting for Brittany to join. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hi.
Oh, Brittany.
She joined.
All right, let me see if I can figure out how to actually make Brittany part of this. There we go. Brittany, I am in. Oh, it worked. Hi, Brittany.
Hey,
Yay. Okay.
well, I'll turn mine sideways then too.
I'm going to go back the other
Okay.
way because we're just trying to get like the right angle here. So, welcome to Code Lavender. It's our first episode, and we are already over here in stitches laughing because here we are, the nurses, expected to be the IT guys. And how's that going? Not good. Not at all good. We have read the user manuals. We've done the YouTube videos. It's like when we put a chest tube in the ER, we just watch a video about it first. So, yes, just winging it over here, but I'm really excited to do this. I was kind of talking to the girls, and I'm going to give everybody a minute to tell us who they are and kind of how our pathways cross because it's different everywhere, but it shows our community. But I had, been in administration for a really long time, and I started to be burnt out, although I never recognized it then. And it came to a point where things were being asked of me that there was finally a line that I wasn't willing to cross. And so I walked away from it. And I'm teaching and I'm working in an area, in a space that I love, the DEI world. I work with mostly kids in New York City who have a lot of social determinant of health challenges. And it's the work I like to do. But I had been approached about doing a podcast. And when I sat down and talked to the people producing it, I really did not like what they wanted me to do. And I wasn't on board with it. So I came home, I was like thinking about it. And actually, my boyfriend, who's super creative and very good at all this stuff, he just said, when the right time to start a podcast was. And I'm like, no. And he's like, yesterday. So here we are, but I wanted to take a few minutes and just let my friends, colleagues, people kind of introduce themselves and kind of how we know each other. So, Polly, you get to go first.
Hi, my name is Paula, and I've worked with Ashley for several years, and we're made friends after her. After she left to bedside to go into management, I've been an emergency room nurse for 21 years.
Yay!
Very long time.
Hi, I'm Tanya. Ashley was actually one of my professors. I'm a baby nurse still. I'm in the RN program as we speak. She taught me a couple of courses in LPN, I think, was two.
Yeah.
So my background is in optometry, and I'll probably be moving into ophthalmology.
And Brittany.
I'm Brittany. Ashley and I met years ago, actually through Unique and makeup. But I've been a nurse for 11 years, and I've done anything from long-term care to corrections, same-day surgery, med surge. I've worked a little bit everywhere, so I like variety.
And I think for Brittany, like my most memorable moment with you, and I haven't shared this with you yet, but I was your professor in an online program when you were advancing your degree, and you wrote me this really meaningful email, and you had 850,000 questions. And I'm like, all right. So I write you back, and I'm like, hey, I think that like this could be better addressed with a phone call if you're comfortable. I give you my cell phone number. I'm sitting up here in New Jersey and the 304 hits my phone. I thought you were somebody. I'm from West Virginia. You're from West Virginia. I thought you were my like people. I get so excited, and then it's like, oh, you're my student, and then right away I'm like, wait, you're my Facebook friend, and and it's just again, what a small world. You sold me makeup, and then like our paths have just crossed since then. I love what you're doing with all your holistic stuff, so I was super excited when we were messaging back and forth, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing on Sunday? So here you are.
Oh,
And even just like I see your house and your background, and I feel like I'm at home. I miss home a lot. So happy to have you here. And I think, I guess just kind of, this is really just a conversation. We just want to get people interacting. So if anybody has anything to add, please jump in. But I, started making some posts a few weeks ago, just really like talking about different things that I had received from people, different things I had encountered, and you know, all the complaints that like I used to deal with in leadership capacities. And I was at a high enough level that I was removed from it. But oftentimes my team would come to me, and we were such a close knit team, it was constant conversation. But just talking to people about like, are you feeling burnt out? And, I got a ton of responses. I was a little disenchanted, and I get why, but most of the responses I got, which were actually hundreds when I looked through them over the past few days, were sent to me privately from people I know, people I don't know, just telling me their stories. I had a couple people call me and tell me something that's going on or happened to them. But I see the hesitancy of people to put this out there because we are so afraid in nursing of retaliation and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of, Paulo, you've been at this forever. Um, I can tell you, working with Paula, she is she does not play any games. She's every administrator's nightmare. It's true story. She is constantly bucking the person who's telling you what to do. And I love her because she always kept me grounded once I left the ER role. And she would call me up and start telling me, oh my God, do you know what they said in Huddle? Do you know what they want us to do? And I would, on the other end, I would say, everybody's boss has a boss, and I'm going to tell you why your leadership is saying that. And so I would ground her, but she also kept me in the whole, this is what we think of you when you come out in your heels and your suit with the candy jar and tell us to whatever. So Paula has always and forever been the best preceptor I've ever met. And she invests herself in new nurses, new grads, and she does not quit on them. She gets them through. So I think Paula, like, where's it at now? What are you seeing? I know COVID definitely made a big difference, but what's going on now with the kids you're precepting, and how are they doing? Are they succeeding? What are you seeing?
So I see that after COVID, there was a lot of seasoned nurses that had enough and they retired. They went to other avenues. I'm seeing a lot of new nurses coming into the field. I see that right now we're not setting these nurses up for success. We have new nurses training new nurses. When I came into this field 21 years ago, my preceptor had 10 years experience. And now you've got nurses that are 6 months to a year out, and they're asking to have an orientee shadow them. Or they're, saying, so they're just trying to find their own, way of doing things and how to survive in the ER or med surg or telemetry, and they're finding their own knacks and little tricks, and then they have someone who's looking up to them. And I also think that education has failed some of the preceptors because I don't even think they ask these people anymore, do you want to teach? It takes a special person to want to teach. A lot of people don't. They just show up and then there's a name next to them and they're like, oh, this person's going to be with you today. Well, have you asked that person, do they want to orient? Because there's nothing worse than having a new nurse come there and the person that they're supposed to look up to teach them does not want nothing to do with them. And that's where I drives me insanity. It drives me crazy because I'm like, oh, God, here we go. And it's a vicious cycle. I think that the new nurses, like, it's a tough situation since COVID hit. Well, we're not looking. It's a lot more like we're looking for bodies. We're not getting the quality that we had. There is a disconnect. We need to make some ground up for sure. I had a nurse one time tell me, I said, you haven't documented anything for breath sounds. in her last 2 shifts. She was like, well, I'm not good at it. So you just don't do it? I'm like, this is not a prop. We use this. Like, it's not Halloween. Like, you need to use this. So I think that we have a lot of ways to make improvement so that the new nurses can flourish. We got some improving to do.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Brittany, I know you've kind of recently moved into academia, and I'm seeing a lot with students that I've never seen before. What are you seeing? You're a million miles away from us, but I promise you, it's just seeing problems, different buildings. So what's going on down there?
I have the sophomores, so I have the brand new group that's just into nursing school. So with that group, everything's new. And I have them, you know what I mean, when they're starting at the bottom level, but I have seen them grow over this last semester. Um, I am an instructor with the BSN program, so they're not just there for a little bit. We've got these students for 3 years. They've already had a year of prereqs in before they even come to us, but I've seen things here and there at clinicals that it's like, oh, okay, mental note for my next clinical group coming in, we need to review this or we need to review that before we step foot into our clinical site. But all the ones that I've had, the majority of them are very eager and they want to learn and they're open to suggestions and ways to grow and improve. Now you've got the ones here and there that are like, I'll do it my way. And, but I mean, you're going to have that in every group.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean,
Yeah.
for the,
And I guess so. Go ahead.
for the most part though, they really are eager and do want to learn, but they're still babies, like
Yeah.
super babies.
Yeah. And as a new grad, what is your experience? How do you feel? What do you think about the profession you've walked into?
I see a lot of backbiting in it, to be honest. I see nurses pitted against nurses. And I wonder how much of that is what you were saying, Paula, about you're just so overwhelmed and you get pushed, new grads, and maybe that's not your thing to mentor. I feel like we're kind of eating each other alive.
So when I went to nursing school, there was that old saying, the older nurses eat the young. And now it's just everyone's eating each other because of the high level of stress. The patient clientele is older, they're sicker. The resources that they can get over 21 years have definitely diminished. So they're coming to the ER and they're using it as a PCP and they're using it to do chronic
Right.
stuff. So everyone's just feeling the constant 24 hours, your 12-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, 36 hours a week under stress, you're under that gun. And then you're being pushed to your limits and being asked to do more and more with less and less. And patients, some of them know their mentals and they are held accountable for their health, and a lot of them don't know. So then, you have new nurses just trying to find their footing. And then we and Ashley were on the phone last night talking about it. Years ago, there was a sense of, oh, thank you for taking care of my mom, or thank you for giving such good care.
Right.
The thank yous are far and fewer in between.
Yeah.
Our field has definitely changed. The recognition has definitely changed.
Yeah.
So I think that there has to be, a lot of things have to, like, some people go into it as a second career. There is stability, there is financial. But if you want to help people and you generally want to do that, then this is a great career, as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. Because if you're looking for validation, may not be for you.
Right.
It's not. It's
Right.
really not.
Yeah.
You're not going to get those thank yous as much as you would like anymore. You're going to do 99 things right. And then unfortunately, we talked about this, management's going to pick on you about the one thing you didn't do right.
Correct.
And that's what you're going to be known for.
Yeah.
So you have to find happiness within yourself, which we talked about more about. Maybe another day we'll talk about more nurses taking care of ourselves and self-care, because we're so conditioned to take care of everybody else that we don't take care of ourselves. We are our worst patients sometimes.
I
So
feel
we
like
have
a
a
lot.
comment that nurse from New York said, Paula was my preceptor. She's the reason I'm a great nurse. She sets up new grads to succeed, not fail. She made me feel like I can do anything while still holding me accountable to my nursing.
Yeah, and I think that that rings true. Um, and I think that kind of led me to, you kind of brought it up, and you and I still will argue about this forever, forever. So, every day I am so excited when Paula is working one of her 12-hour shifts that she's working because I get to hear her batch the huddle every day. She'll be actively sitting in huddle, texting me with profanities and this and that about huddle. So I really started thinking about huddle and what is huddle? What's it supposed to be? So, and I think about where Paula works because I worked there for many years with her, and the huddle there is not appropriate. But looking at it, huddle actually came out of Team Steps and all of the safety initiatives that we know about and we preach and we hear. And first of all, it should be multidisciplinary because we're there to be safe, and the aim is to be safe. It's supposed to last 7 minutes. I know the leadership art of it, of course. It's truly, and it's supposed to be positive. It should never be used to, punitize somebody, but it seems like, that's what goes on in huddle, and the real objective gets missed. It's supposed to start your shift out. It's supposed to ensure that everybody has a plan to have a break. And, in the ER, when I was in charge, I knew where my next two cardiac arrests were going. And I also knew which nurse was getting them. And it was supposed to kind of set us up for success. And, when I kind of posted something about huddle and I asked, like, how many people had like some positive recognition during huddle? I didn't get one person respond to me and say, yep, me, that happened to me today. My leadership came in and was like, go team. I did hear some horror stories. One nurse specifically that I do not know, I have no idea where she lives or she had followed me. She actually wrote to me and talked to me about how she was publicly called out and embarrassed for her sick time during huddle. And when she approached her nurse leader afterwards to say, I felt uncomfortable with that. I didn't like you did that to me. She was told I did it on purpose. Maybe you'll stop calling out. So, I think like this is just my huddles were never like that, I hope. I don't remember, but I tried to be positive. And I think, you go in to work a shift and you start out your day being, ostracized and blamed. And now we're going to put an action plan in for this. And it kind of sets the pathway to burnout. And, Paula, I said something to her last night. I said, you've been burnt out for a long time. And she said, I'm not burned out. I'm not burned out. I may be this, I may be that. But, I think like, do you feel like you're burned out?
I don't think I'm burned out. I love my ER. I enjoy going to work. I have a friend who's she works in the fashion industry, and she makes her job sound way worse than my job. I actually like going to work and this and that, and her expectation. I'm pretty sure she makes more money than I do as a fashion buyer, but she works longer hours than me. She's on call, and she just literally every day can't stand her job. Where I don't. I like going to work. I love my interactions with my coworkers. I love my new nurses. Obviously, and this is not conclusive to anybody's specific ER. This is across the United States. You're gonna have the good and the bad. You're gonna have, the nepotism. You're gonna have the favoritism. You're gonna have the unreal expectations. You just got to make it work with the resources that you're given. I don't think I'm burnt out. I have seen a lot of nurses, some of them that I even trained, and they said, I can't do this no more. I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I've never been jealous of them. I've always said, if a job starts affecting you and your mental capacity to go home and enjoy life, or go home and just unwind, and when you go home and you sit there and you want to drink 2 bottles of wine just to forget your shift, and then you should move on to find something that's more suitable. I don't do that. I don't drink at night. I don't care. I just go home and watch some, Criminal Minds, guys. That's my mind. Just saying, hypothetically, Criminal Minds is where it's at. So I don't think I'm burnt out. I'm very good at detachment. Like when I swipe out, I've done the best I could for the patients that I were given with the resources I was given. I dot my I's, crossed my T's. I work with management. I'm not anti-management. I know they have a job and I understand where they're coming from. I may not have to agree with them. I may not have to like with them, but I have to respect them because they're my bosses. So I don't think I'm burnt out per se. I also don't think that nurses in general, and we talked about this before, we don't know, like, the one young lady that was supposed to be here, maybe she'll come another day. She, at the end, like, really was getting very, very agitated and extremely hostile. And I was like, it's time. Like, it's time for you to leave this setting where you're at. If that's all you are is hostile for everything, when you go out and all you want to do is just be hostile about your work environment, just talking about it, it's not good. It's not good for you. It's inner stress, which is horrible for our body, you know? And it's unfortunate.
I think a certain level of maturity comes into play as well. I think when you're young and you're just starting out, you don't understand, and the expectations you have in your mind are so high, and they may not even be equal with what your preceptor's expectations are. You know, you're just so incredibly worried on this new job. I mean, like, you have literally people's lives in your hands. And, you know, you just, to walk into an unfriendly situation on top of that just so compounds all of that stress, fear, and potential to make mistakes.
Mhm. I also think that, like, and this is, we talked about this, is as nurses, some of us are, this is our second career, we are older, we are more mature, we've been in the job market. So we understand the accepting fact of, okay, this is my job, I'm going to do the best I can. And I have to, because I have a child to provide, a college to pay for, a mortgage. Now you have a bunch of girls or young ladies that are coming into our profession, and it's new. I don't like this. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go to the next job.
Yeah.
And the next job. So a big thing that management and leadership has to really understand is there's no retention anymore.
Right.
When I went into nursing, everybody in my nurse in the ER was 10 years plus. I was like a neon. Now everybody's like less than 2 years and they're considered senior.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of stuff we can definitely build on, and we have to more about retention. We've always, like, a lot of management's thing is, well, let's do a bonus for hiring a new nurse. Like, we'll do a $5,000.
Yeah.
But what about if they stay 5 years, a retention bonus? So why are we not trying to keep quality longer instead of just new? So, there's always room to improve.
Well,
and as she's someone, we go back and forth with management. She tells me about her horror stories, and I'm like, well, there's a reason why I never went up that ladder.
Yeah.
It's not easy for them.
I mean, they understand. It seems to me that we all understand that commerce-based motivation. So I think you made a really valid point in saying, why don't we offer them a retention bonus? Why don't we offer, preceptor bonuses? Like for successful sponsoring of baby nurses. And it should be based on, peer, in my opinion, peer review. What does your precept think of you? Be honest with yourself. I mean, if you can't answer, did I do my job properly, like you said, then maybe it's time to take a look at what you're doing. And that's something I find a lot when I am tutoring fellow students is, what's your role in this? I get a lot of them say, the professor, it's always the professor's fault. It's always the professor's fault. But, one of the first things I will say to a new student is, what's your role in this? Because you have to take responsibility. You're grown. You can vote. You're a grown person now.
Did you do the required study? Did you read the assignments that the professor asked?
Yes, I feel like a lot of them just stroll into class, haven't opened a book. My way of doing it is I try to read the material before I sit in her class. I want to be ready with questions. I want to be able to follow along. So this starts before nursing, before you're ever hired. This kind of like wrong idea of what I think nursing is. Having worked in medicine my whole life, you have to take responsibility for your hand on that.
Oh, absolutely.
It can always be traced back to your hand. And if your hand made a mistake, you're the one that's liable. And you should care about that. And I think that for me, I'm seeing a big chasm between wanting to own your part in it.
Which is weird because part of nursing is always, and it's taught from nursing day one, is taking accountability.
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 For sure.
So if you see something, say something. Read the material before you go into work. Learn your patients, and it's all about safety. So it's.
Agreed, and I see that carrying through with your patients is, I read my material before I show up for my professor's class. I'm going to read a chart before I see a patient and say, okay, well, he's turning blue, maybe that has to do with his respiratory problem I see here. You know what I mean? Like you have to be thinking, I feel like all the time as a nurse. And something else you said that really resonated with me is you do everything you knew you could do, then you put it on the shelf and go watch Law and Order or
Criminal Minds. She's
Criminal
into
Minds.
serial killers.
All right, I like Law and Order.
Keep it where it belongs.
That's my comfort food.
Brittany, what are you seeing with retention? Same issue. I'm thinking about your geographics. You don't have the choices we do here, but do you guys have issue with retention?
There is a lot have left for travel. So I work at like a Band-Aid hospital, but we have all the departments. It's just smaller. We actually have a large branch of UPMC about 30 minutes away and there's honestly within 45 minutes of me, there's probably 5 or 6 options for hospitals. So I am
Yeah.
a smaller area, but there's a lot of options. Because I'm only an hour and a half from Morgantown, West Virginia. So, but a lot with the retention too that I've seen, they bring the new nurses in, pay them all these bonuses, but the ones that have been for 2 or 3 years, they're just kind of like left go, like fell through the cracks, and nothing's really done for them. And like I even wrote a paper on that with school to help retention. Take a $10 budget per week or per month per nurse and do something nice for them when you see they're having a bad day or when you see that they need a pick me up or that they're doing a good job. Like give them a gift card, buy them lunch that day, like set a retention per nurse per however month, quarter, week, however you want to do it, and make them feel appreciated, make them feel valued. Don't make them feel like, oh, you're a dime a dozen and I can replace you next week if I want to. Like, uh,
I actually once upon a time reported to a CNO who frequently said to us behind closed doors, fire them. There are people beating down the door to work here. And that was kind of, the message. So anybody who knows me knows that my little heart can't take that. So I was always kind of at odds with that kind of mentality. But, and when you guys are talking about bonuses, from the other perspective of it, and my little Maria, I saw you on here, and I think you and I lived this horror together for a while. Maria's kind of like my child that I have mentored through, and she has climbed the ladder up underneath of me and behind me, and she does an excellent job. But, on the leadership end, we are so desperate to try to cover a shift or cover an assignment that we're sitting here and we're like, oh, I don't care. I'll give you $2,000 for 12 hours. Oh, you want 2,500? Sure, let's go. I'll add it to your next paycheck, or, we'll give you $50 an hour on top of your hourly rate. But then at the end of the day, we have to figure out how to explain that to the people above us. And then what happens is when we start, explaining our variances, we have to make up for it. So, it makes it really difficult. So then all of a sudden you'll see these cyclic things where you have no staff at all because we don't renew the traveler because we're trying to compensate for there was a point in time between my departments, which, I had a large service area, but I spent in 1 month almost $3 million offering bonuses to get nurses to work. And when you look at an operational budget, like I tanked us for a year. But I wasn't the only person doing that. So I think, it's 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 both sides of that fence are really hard. The bottom line is we need to think about the patient being safe and the nurse being safe in her assignment. um and I think just like kind of talking about new grads, so towards the end, I've been away from leadership for actually April makes a year, and I am a different person. It was hard to walk away, but it's the best decision I ever made. It was making me physically ill. I didn't eat for probably 2 good years. I was so thin, and I had other stuff going on, but I one of the things that bothered me is all of the new hires, new grad or not, they were just quitting. We had people not show up, just, no call, no show. Here we are. And of course, I'm sending the local police out to people's houses for welfare checks because I don't know if they're alive or not. But I started really advocating for like exit interviews, like, well, why are you leaving or this or that? And then it kind of proliferated into just full blown complaints. But the word bullying was the most frequently used word, and it was profound. And, there was a nurse at one point in time that said, there are nurses all over this country killing themselves over this stuff. Why aren't you doing something about it?
Yeah.
And, behind my door, I wanted to say, I'm doing everything I can and I'm hitting every roadblock there is. And if you knew what I was being told to do in response to your complaint, you would die. But, so it was a challenge. But, I think I know you guys see the bullying, and it's coming from the patients, it's coming from the physicians, it's coming from our colleagues, our leadership. I've never seen anything like this. I have been a nurse for, it'll be 26 years in May. Like, what is going on? Why is this going on?
But
I
I think a
you know,
lot we don't prioritize ourselves and we don't take care of ourselves. Like there have been multiple shifts. It gets to 2 p.m. and I'm like, I've got to go eat something and I've got to go to the bathroom because I haven't had a chance to do that at all my entire shift. And when it gets to that point that you're going to be mean and cranky to everybody because for one, you're hungry, for two, you haven't went to the bathroom, and then you're just over it. And you just feel like you're constantly being beat up and tore down and you don't take care of yourself. And then you get home and it's like, okay, what can I grab fast to eat or not eat at all? And it just continues the cycle of not feeling good. And then if you don't feel good and your cup's not full, you can't help anybody else feel good and take care of themselves either. So it's just, it's a vicious
I
cycle that like we have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of and help anybody else. And we don't do that.
I always remember one profound moment. I was in Area E, Paula, you were in charge. Not blaming you. Um, I ate a granola bar in the bathroom, in the patient's bathroom, in the hallway, in the emergency room, because it was the only food and the only place I was going to get for 5 minutes. I put the toilet seat down. There wasn't anything crazy going on in there. But I look back on this now and I'm like, that's pathetic. Like, nobody could even give me 5 minutes to grab something to eat. So I ate a granola bar hiding in a closet bathroom so I wouldn't get people upset about eating at the nurse's station.
Yeah.
And I saw her and her struggles. I don't know if you remember this day. This day's profound for me, actually. No, you're going to remember. You're going to remember it. We had 3 codes in the trauma base. We had a code in the waiting room. I was working triage that day, in the bathroom. And we didn't have enough code cards to cover this, actually. And then we closed out our day with a pediatric code that did not have a good outcome. And we went to Tiffany's and we ate pizza afterwards and laughed and joked and drank and I don't remember what the outcomes of the adults were, but the peds code was mine and it was profound. And I just remember like reflecting on it. I'm like, all right, that's the day I ate a granola bar on the toilet, and then I watched a family in despair after a tragic death of a child and went with my colleagues and drank and ate pizza because none of us could deal with it, and none of us definitely had anybody to talk to about it, so we chose not to talk about it. But and I think I talked to a lot of people, and it's almost expected of us that we can just do this and move on from it and not be affected by it. And how many times do you have a patient die? I mean, being very transparent, and the Paulas of the world are giving you a new admission. Like, oh, whoa, 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 the patient's out of the bed. You got them out of here. Let's go. You have a new one coming. And I know you try not to do that, but I think we're completely disconnected from any true human capacity in our role, and it ruins me because I believe so much in the holism of nursing. I mean, I have always, and if you ask my students, you can be taking farm with me about, nomenclature and drugs, and you're going to hear about homeopathic medicine and how to treat patients without meds. And so it never matters. But I mean, what do you think?
I think that, as people are getting older and sicker and the volumes are increasing, years ago, when you would have a code, you would be actually able to, have more time with the family, actually have a little bit more downtime and be able to process it. But as the needs of the department, as the needs of other patients are getting more and more, you are literally ready to just say, okay, this is over. I have to process that in 2 seconds and I have to go on to the next task that I have to do. There's somebody else coming to the door who could be just as sick, but that I can save. And so we don't have time to process that or feel those emotions. Sometimes it looks like we're heartless. Sometimes we use inappropriate humor. I've been reprimanded for laughing sometimes, and I'm just like, it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
If I don't laugh, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
And for some of the new nurses were like, "You've been doing this for 21 years. I said, I have to disconnect. I have a son to go home to. I can't break because that's a luxury I don't have. So I'm going to do this here. And then when I swipe out, I go home and we're blessed with the one thing that no one else in this world knows is how life is short.
Yeah.
We are blessed with that because we see it every single day. So I go home and I value every moment I have with my son and my friends and my family. So that's the blessing as well as the curse. The curse is that we know that any moment could go, but the blessing is that we know not to take it for granted. But going back, we should do better with our feelings. We should do better with taking care of ourselves, eating and drinking and hydrating. They did a study, nurses have the highest incidence of urinary tract infections. I can drink a Corona in 2 seconds. I can't drink a bottle of water in 12 hours. So, these are the things that we don't talk about. It's just expected.
But it's not just like nurses are also terrible about sitting around with their energy drinks just to make it through the day. It's not water that we're drinking because for one, we're not allowed to have water at the nurses station. And for
There
two,
you go. Exactly.
yeah, you're trying to do
The hydration
make it
station.
through the day, not realizing that you need 6 gallons of water to flush out that one energy drink that you just drank. So, I mean, but we dehydrate ourselves because we don't have time to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. And I think, like back down the bullying pathway, somebody else sent me a message, and this person is somebody that I knew personally long before she became a nurse. We raised our kids together in the same town, actually, but she recently went back to school, became a nurse, and she had graduated, came to work and worked on some unit, medical focus or something for a year or so. And then she really, really wanted to do something more. And she had entertained her options. She interviewed outside of the hospital she was in a couple ICUs. She looked at other opportunities, and she actually got a golden opportunity, which not a lot of young nurses get, to stay in her own facility and to go to the operating room. So she was, happy about that, excited about it. And she's down there and she's struggling because she's being bullied. And I mean, those are my words, not hers, but the bullying is actually coming from all different angles. But it was very interesting. She told me a story about her educator, her dedicated educator to her unit, who really is supposed to make you successful and make you independent so you can be safe. Actually, amongst all the things she told me, the one thing that just killed me was told her that she'll never survive in the OR because of her large stature, and that the surgeons and stuff aren't going to like that. And I just thought to myself, like, seriously, right now, like, why? Like,
Yeah.
why are we, I guess, body shaming somebody, and connecting it to their ability to be a successful operating room nurse? And I know, like, it's really affecting her, and it's continued, and she complains about it, and nothing was done. And, it just, I see this a lot. So, I think, again, to your point, take care of ourselves first, but I think we also have to be really mindful about how we're projecting ourselves onto other people, whether it's the people we're training, our colleagues, our patients, their family members. Many times I would walk onto my units to round, and I'm very kind of observant, and I would see a family member or somebody standing at the desk and 12 nurses at the desk with their head down.
Yeah.
Because they were avoiding dealing with yet another thing.
Yeah.
It was the first term, and they weren't just sitting there. They were charting, they were doing what they had to do to get through their shifts, but just really disconnected from humanity. I have not experienced this until probably and I'm not blaming this on COVID. I will never use COVID as a crutch. It was the most horrific time of my career, but we did get through it, and I saw the most resilience out of my peds and OB team, taking care of patients with A lines on drips, vented, things that they had no clue how to do. They rallied and they did it. This started long before COVID. This was very transparent to me before COVID happened. I think it was just another kind of knife in the back. So
I guess maybe the more frustrated we are, the more permission we give ourselves to let the niceties of life just kind of drop off. And I think, Paul, you had said as well, like the language between medical professionals can be very abrasive. And a lot of times there aren't pleases or thank yous, and that's totally fine. You're not dancing on feelings with me. But I think that can carry over to all the time when you're feeling that level of frustration and you're in a crisis situation and the pleases and thank yous are not there. They don't belong there. But then that might sort of carry over, and that sort of feeling of, it's like you said, it never actually gets properly processed. So it's always just sort of hanging in the air like burnt toast or something, and it just permeates every other interaction that you have for the rest of the day. That's still there because it just, where else would it be? It has never been said, okay, oh my God, I lost somebody, or I wonder if I made a mistake, or was I abrupt with somebody? You don't have time to put those kind of thoughts into those kind of, and they have a lot of value. I mean, that's part of our job as nurses is, especially with patients' families and patients. This is the worst day of their life a lot of times. They're terrified. They're not going to be, I don't calibrate your expectations, maybe.
Right.
I think that's a lot of times we think we get into a job and we.
I think, well, going back to what you said, sometimes, especially with newer nurses, sometimes families can be very abrupt. They can be outright rude. And some of the patients can be rude when they're dealing with chronically long illnesses. And some people process it different. If you've had your whole life and you're chronically ill, eventually you're going to one, either be depressed or two, be angry.
Yeah.
Why is this happening to me? It's not personal.
No.
I think the older generations were mature. We understand it's not personal. They're just saying a word, just keep them smiling and doing, just try to be understanding about it. And some of the younger nurses don't always see it that way. They get easily offended. We are in a big society now that everything is off limits and everyone's easily offended. But when it comes to healthcare, people are going to be angry. They're in a crisis. Some people are going to process their diagnosis is a lot better, and some people are going to be angry all the time. And it's not fair. Why is this happening to me? I don't know. But while you're here, allow me to help you.
Right.
That's what I want. I'm here to help you.
Right.
So you could, if you want to refuse my help, I understand. But if you don't, I'm going to give you my all. And so I think it's a outlook and an input you need to give and have a report, and then that comes over time. That comes over time and understanding and as you go. And as far as going back to the retention thing and the new nurses, it's like I I did accounting before I became a nurse, and I will say that as far as like your budget, you're saying you spend $3 million in a month. It blows my mind that they're willing to do those type of bonuses where they're willing to get travels nurses in, but why not just offer your long-term nurses $10 more an hour, or here or there, or like, hey, you know what, you picked up 3 extra shifts this month and you really made a difference on the unit. Here's a little gift card for a spa. Go take your day out to the spa. Reward productivity, reward the fact that, because travel nurses aren't the answer for long term in a company. They're no loyalty to your company.
Right.
People who are there that choose to stay there for their company, they're loyal to that company. They want to be there. They want things to work out.
Oh, sure.
So I think that has to be looked at more as like if they could do like a study, like the big thing now, and we know that this isn't big, we talk about this all the time. Travel nursing, when I first started out, you had to have at least 4 or 5 years experience before you could do a travel nursing contract. Now it's like, oh, you graduated June? Okay, now they're applying for contracts after 3 months of, and so now, someone who has gone and been in charge and had to deal with multiple travelers. I love my travelers. I would never dispute anybody going out and doing their thing and making more money. Doesn't bother me at all. I have my personal reasons why I stay where I stay, and I love my company and my job. But the experience is not there. You're trying to go to a job that you're not really qualified because you want to make all that money.
Yeah.
But you're not bringing the experience you need to the table to provide the care that's required.
Right.
And then you get upset when I'm going to give you the quality of the patients that this is what we take care of every single day. So I have staff nurses that are taking care of it. I expect you to pull your rope. It's not, and we're some travelers are like, oh, I got picked up. No, you didn't. You literally told your, I guess, coordinator that you were able to handle this type of patient. So I think travel companies have to reevaluate their standards and how they're hiring these nurses and where they're sending the nurses to, because it's a business. At the end of the day, everything is a business. But to us, it's people's lives. It's two different outlooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a reinvestment. I mean, an employer, it is a relationship.
Absolutely.
It is two parts of one whole situation. So, as an employee, you have to take responsibility for investing and making sure this is right. If it's not right, make it right. At least try. Like you said, put your head down at night knowing you did everything you could to make your job better. Don't just throw it away. And I guess maybe it's a reflection of current times that things are so disposable, jobs are as well, especially in this area. I mean, we are job hoppers. Because we can go somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, we have like a few minutes left, but I just want to go kind of get any last thoughts, any feelings. Can't wait to do the next kind of stuff. Today, we just wanted to get on and kind of talk, but always looking for people to join us and really just, I've done a lot of work in the trauma-informed care paradigm. I've published some stuff talking about, the experiences of our patients and how it affects everything when we're taking care of them and how they react to us. But, I'm really starting to think about, well, what about the trauma-informed caregiver? Who's out there caring about us? So I have exciting people that want to come on and talk to us. It's not always going to be a bunch of nurses sitting around. I want other people. I'm going to have somebody who is really active in yoga and Reiki and just different kinds of like self-care stuff we can do to take care of ourselves. And I want to look at what do people do to remain sane? Because I think, when you look at the amount of stress and trauma, and stress is, here I go. Anybody want my stress lecture? I just gave it the other day in critical care class, but stress is a natural response. It's protective. And when we initially encounter it, we see all the physical symptoms, right? but then over time it becomes prolonged and we get conditioned to it until we exhaust out of it. And that's when burnout happens. And I've done a lot of reading about burnout. You know, I've learned so much, but just what are we doing to take care of the people who work for us, and what are we doing to take care of ourselves? And I think one of the most profound things in all of my studying and kind of observing is most people don't realize when they are in a chronic state of stress because their body has compensated for it, you know. And I think that's really concerning because people, you know, don't realize it. And I said to Paula last night, and she's still sitting here saying she's not burned out. And that burnout obviously sucks, but it doesn't have to be a negative association. But one of the things that people who are burned out is kind of play the like people pleaser role. This woman will pick up a shift even when she swears to God she's not going to. I will not go to work tomorrow. You watch, they call me, I'm not answering. Oh, I'm at work. Oh, in the huddle today. I'm like, you weren't working today. And at this point in time, it's not even about money. We all see our paychecks, right? You work overtime, it actually goes to our government, so it's not even worth it. We all know this. But you know, so I think just like final thoughts. What are you guys thinking?
They just called me on some BS.
I always
I'm the same way. I said the same thing on Friday, and there I am clocking in. So, but
yeah, it's
No, I think, well, somewhere down the line, but I think, we could all attest to as far as nurses, we all have a really, really bad relationship with money. And as far as because, and we there's memes, tons of memes on it about, well, oh, I'm gonna go on vacation, that's 3 overtime shifts. I want that brand new handbag, that's 1 overtime shift. My son needs new sporting goods or private gym, okay, that's another shift. So I am now 21 years in, I'm getting older. I know I need to slow down, so I'm going to work on my relationship with money and finances this year. That was, we talked about, and that will be my self-care because I do want to slow down. And my sister is probably watching this giggling and laughing at Ashley.
I
say
did
the
see
same
her.
thing.
I see you out there.
I
And
say the
she,
same thing all the time. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to work. And she's like, what do you mean you picked up a shift?
yeah.
It's you know, yes, it is also to help my counterpartners. Of my boss calls me, she's like, oh, I literally left the bar. My boss has called me and said, listen, I had 3 call outs, can you come in tonight? And I'm like, give me 4 hours to take a power nap, I'll be there. And my boss relies on me, and I appreciate that. She has faith in me, and I don't know if it's a good thing or if it's a dysfunctional thing. And I will go to help my team, but I think that part of self-care is going to have to identify, you know, as nurses, um, living on our regular means, not living on our overtime means. I think we touched on
We
that
talked about
before.
this, yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, like when you finally see your check with no overtime, you're like, I can't live like this. And you're like, no, I can. Normal people live way less than this. What are we doing here? So it's a definitely a nursing thing.
Well, it's a coping mechanism again. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you for joining us. And, you know, I'm excited, and I'm going to leave everybody and just challenge everybody to pick one thing, even if it's the tiniest thing in the world, and make it a habit this week just to kind of take care of you, because you need to be healthy. And I don't want people who are living in that chronic stress state taking care of me or anybody that I love. So, you know, pick something. It can be just taking 20 minutes to actually eat a meal. That's something else I've recently partaken in, which is a very interesting challenge. I dare everybody to actually time yourself and see if you allot yourself at least 20 minutes to eat. I promise you don't. And it's so hard. I have to pace my fork and put it down to accomplish 20 minutes. But, and also that 20 minutes should not include a screen, a phone, you know, working. Like really take that time and do whatever, or drink your water. I don't care. So, all right. And Brittany, thank you so much for
Thank you, Brittany.
joining us from West Virginia. My heart is and always will be there. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. And thanks for everybody who joined.
Bye.
Bye. Happy Sunday. How do you?